Afternoon. Welcome to the Business of Design, monthly lecture series brought to you by Design Center at the Mart in partnership with ASID Illinois. My name is Beth Hicks, Managing Director of Marketing, and I'll be your host for today. So today it's my pleasure to welcome back Lizzie Campbell to present Instagram for Business in 2021. So Lizzie is a designer, business coach, and strategist for creative business owners. Lizzie is passionate about helping creative entrepreneurs build beautiful, impactful brands online and off through brand and website design, social media strategy, and more. You all know the basics of Instagram, so today Lizzie is taking us to the next level, getting us up to speed for 2021 and beyond. So please feel free to submit questions anytime during the presentation in the Q&A section of your screen, which is probably down at the bottom. And I am going to welcome Lizzie.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen so that we can dive in and get started. Maybe. All right. So, okay. Like Beth said, I'm Lizzie Campbell. I'm really excited to be here. And I'm just going to share some tips and tricks for using Instagram more strategically to grow your brand and business. So like she said, we'll have questions at the end. So if you have questions about anything at any time, feel free to pop that in the Q&A box. And you'll also be able to download these slides as well. So if you want to take a closer look at something, don't worry about that. You can absolutely do that. So before I get too far into the presentation, I should introduce myself a little bit better. Like I said, my name is Lizzie Campbell, and I own a branding studio geared towards helping creative business owners like yourselves build beautiful and impactful brands online and off. So I have been a designer, content creator, and creative entrepreneur for over 9 years now. And in that time, I've grown a combined online community of over 50,000 followers. And on the personal side of things, I now live in Grand Rapids, Michigan with my husband, our cat, and our rambunctious new corgi puppy. So hopefully she stays quiet during this. But I'm really excited to be here and to talk all things Instagram. So here's a fun fact for you. There are 1 billion monthly users on Instagram. Engagement with brands and businesses on Instagram is 10 times higher than Facebook, 54 times higher than Pinterest, and 84 times higher than Twitter. So that means that no matter who you are or what your business is, your clients and customers are on Instagram and they want to connect with you there. In fact, in the last several years, actually, the majority of my client inquiries came from people who found me on Instagram. And bear in mind that a lot of these were completely cold as well. I had never interacted with them before they reached out, but they usually said something along the lines of, oh, I've been following you on Instagram for ages and I'm finally reaching out now, stuff like that. And I like to think of Instagram as kind of like the new online homepage. So obviously, having your own website is still very important. And I don't think that's ever going to change, but it has been suggested now by a lot of people that oftentimes people will look at your brand or business's Instagram or social media accounts before they ever, do a Google search or end up on your website. So that's why it's so important to have a presence on the platform and to utilize it as best you can for your brand and business. So today I'm going to be talking about 3 kind of main things. So the first one that we're going to dive into is creating a cohesive brand on Instagram that really furthers your business goals. From then we'll dive into infusing strategy into your content and kind of understanding analytics, scheduling posts, being more strategic about your content plan. And finally, we'll be talking about some more advanced features on Instagram like Reels and Stories and how they can kind of supplement your content and really help accelerate your growth on the platform. So first things first, let's discuss creating a brand on Instagram. So before we get too far into it, I want to talk about, what is a brand in this scenario. So branding at its bare bones is a set of images, logos, colors, and names that identify a product or a company or a website. And it's really essential to a business. Branding is kind of like the curb appeal that makes people want to come inside the house, right? So your brand is everything from, your logo to your color scheme to your website design. And it's the way that you want your clients, customers, and readers to feel after seeing your content or interacting with you online. It's kind of like the set of words, ideas, and principles that you really adhere to in your company. And on Instagram, that kind of plays into a lot of things, from your color scheme to, what you say in captions and all sorts of things. So we're going to be talking about that more in depth. But you want your branding to be kind of like your own personal trademark. It's been said that your brand is what people say about you when you're not in the room. So you might be thinking, why do I need a brand on Instagram specifically? Basically, there are millions of small businesses out there and growing every day. Remember, there are 1 billion monthly users on Instagram alone. So the only way that you're going to find success is if you find what sets you apart. There's nothing new under the sun, technically, but there is only one you. You have a unique perspective and a unique selling point, and you will have an easier time carving out a niche and dominating it if you can find some sort of gap in the market. Basically finding something that only you can offer. Even if you're selling something that, maybe isn't all that unique, you can still find a way to make it your own. Taking myself as an example, the fact of the matter is there are tons and tons of brand designers out there, but I still managed to find my own unique style and brand positioning to get myself noticed in a really crowded market. So whether there are 10 or 10,000 businesses similar to yours, no one can do things exactly the way that you can. It sounds cheesy, but it's absolutely true. So figuring out how to set yourself apart, and you're already halfway there. That's what branding is really all about, is creating that unique experience with your products or services or content that make people really want to be a part of things. So on Instagram, your brand can kind of look like your profile photo, the colors and the content in your feed posts, your tone of voice and your caption, so what you're saying to people, your ideal audience, which we're going to talk about more in a second, even the hashtags you use, and of course, what you post about as well. So my first tip for keeping things really well branded on Instagram is to keep your color palette consistent. You can see in this screenshot of my recent posts that all of my posts utilize the same kinds of pink, beige, cream, green tones that I use in my own branding, or, similar variants of that kind of flow together nicely. And they make it immediately recognizable. If you go to my website, it uses all the same colors, so it kind of all just flows together. And for photos, which probably more of your content will be more photo-based, you want to use the same preset or filter from a photo editing app to really help keep things consistent. So some of my favorite Instagram editing apps are A Color Story, Adobe Lightroom, Snapseed by Google, Afterlight, and ViscoCam. And I think all of these are either free or they have a free version. All of them come with, filters, things that basically you can edit your photos and make them look a lot nicer, especially if you're working with, maybe not the professional photo shoots and things like that. So you'll want to, if you explore these on your own, you'll want to find 1 or 2 complementary filters that work well with kind of the types of content that you're posting and the colors that you're using and things like that. And try to use those on every single post so it just looks really cohesive and flows together. My second tip for branding your Instagram is to figure out your brand tone and voice. So, how are you going to talk to your followers in your captions? Are you, fun and relatable, or are you more serious and educational and more professional? Personally, my brand is more down to earth and relatable. So, I use things like slang terms and emojis, and I talk to my audience roughly the same way I talk to my friends. You can kind of see an example, but that might not be, your situation. So, determining your brand voice, there are some things that you can ask yourself and think about. So how does your audience want to be spoken to? Are they looking for a guide, somebody that's going to, really lead from above? Are they looking for a friend and confidant? And then what information are you sharing? Does it necessitate a more serious tone, or can you have some more fun with it? It kind of just depends, on what you're talking about. And again, what your brand is all about. And similarly, what is your relationship with your audience? Are you their friend, their older sister, their business coach? Obviously you're their designer, but thinking more granularly about it can kind of really help inform how you communicate with them and think about your role or your archetype in your brand. And think about, how would you normally talk to a friend or an acquaintance or a business associate? Are you personally a bubbly, friendly person, or are you more reserved and professional? Because you want to be, true to yourself with your branding as well, and not do something that's not going to feel accurate to you. My third tip is to figure out your ideal audience or follower. So think about who are you. Potential clients, probably so, industry connections, fellow designers. There's a saying in the marketing world that goes, if you're marketing to everyone, then you're marketing to no one. Essentially, it's impossible to create a brand or messaging that resonates with every single demographic. And in today's day and age, where there are more brands and more ways to connect than ever before, then it's really even more imperative to connect strongly with your ideal clients and audience. So who do you want to work with? And who do you usually work with? Are they the same, or is there some disconnect there? And this is where I start with every single one of my branding clients. And it's the number one advice I give to anyone who wants to grow their brand or business: knowing your ideal audience or follower or client or customer intimately. And you might have more than one. Most people and most businesses do. But if you find that you're kind of going through it and having, 3 or 4, then you might want to hone in on your messaging a little bit more. So there are a few basic questions that you can ask to, start thinking about getting to know your ideal clients or audience. And if you don't know where to start with answering these questions, then think about, people that you've worked with in the past, both clients that you've really liked and maybe clients that you didn't have as great of an experience with. And think about what commonalities each group had that you can either choose to pursue or avoid in the future. So some questions to ask yourself include demographics like age, gender, location, income, family size, things like that. Their lifestyle. So, where do they travel? What media do they consume? What values do they hold? And is it important to you or to them that you share similar values? What is their mindset? So, what are their goals and plans? What are they working towards? What season of life are they in? Are they just buying their first home, or are they empty nesters or looking for a vacation home? Things like that. Their pain points is especially important. So how can you help them, and why do they need to follow or hire you specifically? And, why does it matter knowing who, your ideal follower or client is? Kind of a lot of people think, well, anybody that wants to follow me is a good follower. But in order to connect with your followers, you really need to understand them. That's going to really help you create content that's going to really resonate with them and get them to hit that follow button, click on your website link, or even hopefully hire you. We're going to be talking a little bit later about how it's more important to cultivate these engaged followers instead of just getting as many as you possibly can, because you want people that are actually going to engage with your content, that are going to care about what you're posting, and ideally go on to hire you or want to work with you, as opposed to just having tens of thousands of followers that really don't care what you're saying or what you're selling. And my last tip is to use the same few fonts for everything. So if you plan to create any sort of like graphics, like you can kind of see here, be sure to only use a few fonts. So ideally, these would be, the fonts that you use for your branding or website. But if, those haven't been determined, or if they're just not quite what you have in mind, then try to choose 2 to 3 fonts to use and use them every single time. That'll, just like the color palette, really help things to be cohesive and to flow together. So to recap this first section, you want to use the same colors and fonts for everything, determining your brand voice and use it when you are writing captions or thinking of content, and identify your ideal audience and target them when you are creating that content that we're going to talk about in just a second. So our second section here is going to be more about infusing strategy into your content on Instagram. So I wanted to kind of briefly look at the differences between using a strategy with your content and maybe not using strategy. So if you have some sort of content strategy, that means your content is planned out and probably scheduled out in advance, so you don't have to worry about it. From your analytics when your best time to post is, and you think about your ideal audience that we just talked about when you're creating content, when you're coming up with ideas, things like that. If you're not really using strategy, you probably are just posting on the fly or whenever you think about it, which kind of results in really inconsistent posting. So, you might post a bunch when you're on vacation and you have cool photos or something, and then maybe not post for a week or 2 at a time. And that just really doesn't help with the whole growth thing. You post when it's convenient for you. Maybe it's 10 p.m. and you're finally sitting down for the end of the day and you think about it, not necessarily when your followers are actually online. And you don't really have a plan when you're creating content. You just, again, are kind of posting whatever pops into your head at the moment. So I want to first talk about insights or analytics. So Instagram business accounts have access to these analytics, which are called insights, about your followers, content, tons more stuff. And you can access these by tapping the 3 lines in the top right corner of your Instagram profile and then clicking on the insights button. And I wanted to point out, you can only access these if you have an Instagram business account. If you don't already have one, I highly recommend switching. It's totally free. It doesn't affect your account beyond providing you with these extra tools that help grow your business. I don't want to go over how to switch in detail because I'm guessing that a lot of you probably already have business accounts, but if you don't yet, you can go into your Instagram settings by tapping those same 3 lines in the top right and choose switch to professional account, and it'll walk you through the steps. So it's really straightforward and simple. But familiarizing yourself with these analytics and these insights and checking in on them regularly can make sure that your content is hitting that intended mark and really working to serve your audience that you've come up with. So I wanted to cover some of the important things that you can find in your analytics and insights. So the first one is the posts tab. So under the posts tab and insights, you can see all of your posts and you can choose the time frame. You can sort them by, anything from which ones got the most comments, which is what you're seeing in this picture, to which posts were shared or saved the most, or which ones got you the most new followers. And this is important because, the more comments, the more likes and saves, etc., that a post gets, that can indicate that this is content that's really hitting the mark with your audience and really resonating. And then, give you an idea of things that you should try to make more of, essentially. So if you see that certain posts are doing really, really well, then you'll have to kind of think about it and analyze, what is it about that post that you can kind of recreate and kind of share more of to continue seeing those results. The other important part of your insights is the audience or follower breakdown. So the audience tab can show you lots of good info. When you first click on it, you'll see this kind of chart showing you the growth overall of your followers and unfollowers, things like that. And you can choose the different durations. So it defaults to the last 7 days, essentially. If you scroll down a little bit, then you'll see the top locations and age ranges of your current followers. And this can really help you with targeting that ideal audience. So, if your results are kind of far off of the ideal audience that you came up with in our last section, then that can kind of give you an indication that it might be time to readjust your strategy. Or if it matches up perfectly, then that means you're doing something right and you can kind of keep going the way that you're going. And then finally, scrolling down a little bit further will show you the gender breakdown of your audience, as well as the days and times that they are most active. So this bottom section will give you a good idea of your best times to post each day of the week. So you want to aim to post when the majority of your followers are active. So in this example, it looks like the 12 p.m. and the 3 p.m. hours are my most active time chunks on Tuesdays. So that would tell me that I should aim to post during one of those 2 times because the majority of my followers or the most of my followers are active during those times, which means they're more likely to see it and more people are more likely to see it as well. So the next thing I want to talk about is creating a content calendar. And this is really the best way to stay organized and on track and just make sure that you have that strategy behind your content. It just helps ensure that everything you post is consistent and will really resonate with your ideal audience. So it's a good idea to create a weekly or monthly content calendar that's full of ideas or kind of categories to help you stay organized and so that you never run out of things to post as well. So these could change every so often, or they could be consistent every single week. So like every single Monday, you're going to post a specific type of post, things like that. And it's more for your own internal benefit. You don't have to say to your followers hey, it's Monday, we're posting this. It's mostly more for you so that you are organized and you know what you're going to post. But I would suggest coming up with 7 to 9 categories or content pillars, I like to call them, to kind of keep things interesting. And this could be things like final projects, behind the scenes, interior tips, vendor spotlights, etc. Basically whatever works for yourself and your schedule and your audience as well. So here's some examples of my own kind of content pillars or categories like I was just talking about. So we have inspirational quotes, lifestyle photos, my design work or portfolio, client education. So that's things like, sharing the different offerings that I have or how people can work with me or what my process is like so that people that maybe want to hire me can kind of know a little bit more about the behind the scenes info. Know, like, and trust. That's kind of like any personal anecdotes or like about me information that kind of helps my audience get to know me a little bit better on a personal level, because people like to connect with the people behind the brands nowadays. Designer education is another one of mine, because it's like sharing things about, fonts that I'm liking, or, how I run my business, things like that, because it's also a service and a thing that I offer. Just for fun, we're going to be talking about this a little bit more when we get into Reels in the next section, but it's just kind of like fun, relatable content, business tips, social media tips, color palettes, things like that. So this is just my example, but coming up with these kinds of either types of posts or types of content will really, really help you. And here's an example of like a 6-day weekly posting schedule. So you can see I have like the generic or the general topic for each day, and then the time of when I want to post it based on, my analytics and my ideal times that we were just talking about. So let's say Mondays, I'm posting a finished product at 1 p.m. Tuesday, behind the scenes post at 3 p.m. Wednesday, a decorating tip at 11. Thursday, a staff spotlight at 11. Friday, another finished project at 1. And then one of the weekend days, maybe you go to an industry event and you want to post about that at 11. So it's just kind of an idea of, a basic content calendar, a basic schedule that you can kind of start fleshing out. And again, this can be something where, every Monday and every Friday you post a finished project, or it can be something that changes. And just as long as you're kind of varying those content pillars or those categories, then you're kind of all set. So, like I mentioned previously, it's best to schedule out your content in advance. So some people like to schedule things, just a week out at a time if they want to keep things fresh. Other people like to sit down and plan out, the entire month at the beginning of each month so that they don't have to think about it, basically. I think all of these scheduling tools that I've listed here allow you to schedule and automatically post content to Instagram. So, you don't have to think about it again. You can just write all your captions, schedule out everything on Monday, and it'll just go out every day when it's supposed to. Sometimes depending on what kind of content or what kind of account you have, it might just send you a notification to your phone that it's time to post, and then you kind of do the rest. But either way, it'll help you stay on track. So the ones that I recommend are Planoly, Later, Preview App, A Color Story, Buffer, and Tailwind. And I think of these, I've used all of these. I use Planoly currently. I think that's my favorite. And Later is also a really, really good option. So those are probably my two favorites of this list. So recapping this section, just want to utilize your Instagram analytics to really ensure that your content is resonating with that ideal audience that you put together. Creating content pillars or categories so that you always know what to post and you're never, scrambling for an idea. And then again, scheduling out content ahead of time to make sure that it's really consistent and, going out when it needs to, because posting consistently is really the number one way to grow your account and start making a name for yourself. So part 3 is the advanced features. So Instagram has rolled out a lot of new features and really ramped up some things in the past couple of years. So I want to talk about how you can utilize these to really grow your account and your following. So these are Reels, Stories, and IGTV. So succeeding on Instagram in 2021 is really about more than just posting pretty pictures to your feed every day. Unfortunately, they've made it a lot more complicated. But Instagram really rewards users who utilize all of its features. So these stories, reels, all of these things, the more things that you can use and post, then the more Instagram is going to see your account as really high quality. It's going to show it to more people and you're going to gain more followers. So first of all, stories are basically short clips, like 15 seconds long, that disappear after 24 hours. You can see a screen recording of me going through some of these. Stories live at the top of your feed in the little round bubbles. And the more you interact with an account, the closer to the front their story will appear. So that works for you on the other hand too, because the more people engage with your account, then when you post a story, it's going to slide up to the front and they're going to see it right away. And you navigate these by either tapping to see the next slide of that person's story, or if it's boring and you don't want to see it, you can swipe as well to see the next person's story. But just kind of tapping through them, it's very addictive if you haven't already used these. So Reels, these are short form videos. They are up to 30 seconds on Instagram, and they usually combine like video, music, and like transitions to share some quick information or entertainment. If you have used TikTok, or if your kids have talked about TikTok, this is basically TikTok on Instagram. Reels now live at their own like screen, and that's accessed at the bottom bar here in this center, the little like play icon. And that's really showing you how much Instagram wants you to use Reels, because that used to be where the post new like content button was, and now that they've moved that to focus on Reels. And then you navigate these two by swiping up or down to go to the next video, basically. And then finally, IGTV. So these are videos. They can be up to 10 minutes long, I believe. They can either be portrait or landscape. Reels and stories always have to be portrait orientation. So you can think of these more like YouTube videos kind of, so these can be more long form content. Also, if you do an Instagram live, you can save this as a IGTV so that people can watch it after the fact. And IGTV has its own tab as well under the Explore page. So if you click on the magnifying glass button, then it'll pop up with IGTV at the very top, and you can kind of scroll through people you follow or people that it thinks you would want to watch. So you're probably wondering which one of these is the most important thing to focus on. So in 2021, Reels is the most important feature. It's Instagram's new baby, basically, and they are promoting it really heavily. They are, really focusing on this feature, and accounts that use Reels are being shown much more, getting much more engagement and traction, things like that. Second to that is stories, which really have kind of turned into the other kind of feed posts. They should be basically used daily in conjunction with your, static feed posts that you like, your photos and stuff that we were talking about. And then IGTV is useful if you have a lot of pre-recorded video content, if you have like a YouTube channel, or if you've done a lot of videos, or if you do a lot of Instagram lives. But I wouldn't focus on that one like as far as creating new content for it, because it kind of seems like Instagram is starting to phase it out. It's a lot harder to find on the app now. So they're really focusing in and putting all of their eggs in this Reels basket here. So again, I kind of just wanted to like hone in on the differences between stories and Reels, because on the surface, they seem kind of similar when you're just kind of describing them. But stories can be photos or videos. So you can like upload or take a photo from your phone. If you take a video, each story can be up to 15 seconds long. A lot of people will just like record a longer video, and it just basically breaks it up into 15-second segments. And these are meant to be more unscripted, kind of off the cuff, random, day-to-day kind of adventures. And they disappear after 24 hours. So if you post something, it'll be gone the next day unless you save it. You on the back end can still find it, but your followers and anybody else can't see it after 24 hours. And then Reels are always videos. You can add photos to the videos, but we'll talk about that in a second. They can be up to 30 seconds long. And then these are more usually like planned out and executed and, thought out, because it requires some sort of like production quality in a way. And then these live forever on your Reels tab and on your profile. They don't disappear like stories do. So you're probably thinking, well, it's just another thing that I have to figure out how to do. Like, why should I bother using this Reels thing? And I felt the same way at the beginning. I really was resistant to it because, it's just a totally different ballgame. But it became clear to me that really using Reels is the best way to grow your account, to grow your following in 2021. Like I was saying, they are prioritizing Reels higher than any other form of content on the platform currently. So this means if you're utilizing Reels correctly, which we're going to talk about, you have a much higher chance of going viral or even just getting your content seen by lots of people who don't currently follow you. That's way more than any other type of content or type of post on the app. So it's really beneficial to experiment with it, dive in, just kind of see what you can do with it and see what resonates with your audience as well. So to create a reel, you can click on the plus sign in the top right corner of your profile and select Reel. You will get this menu that you see kind of looping here. And so this is what comes up when you open the screen to create a reel. So you have your music option, your length, your video speed. You can add filters. You can do like a touch up. So it's like a, make you look a little bit better kind of thing. And you can also do a timer. So I'm going to dive into each one of these more in depth. So you can add music, which is always recommended. You can add this by clicking on the little music note option and it'll bring up this menu. You can either browse things that are popular right now, songs, or you can search for a song if you want one. And then you can choose the section basically of the song. So either the 15 or 30 seconds that you want to use and hit done, and then it'll add it to your reel. From there, you can change the duration, so either 15 or 30 seconds. You don't have to use the full amount, but if you're going to do like more than 15 seconds, then you have to choose the 30-second one. You can tap the little 1x to change the video speed, so if you want it to be in slow motion or super fast, something like that. And the little sparkles, you can add filters or effects, so you can see I'm kind of scrolling through and adding one that has the date and time on it. That can just be fun. They have, all sorts of different filters. Some of them that make you look kind of funky and some of them that are just like cutesy, things like this as well. And then to record it, you're going to press and hold that circle in the bottom center to record the reel. When you're done recording, then you just lift your finger up off of it and it stops recording. And you can see the kind of like clip shows up. So to edit video clips, if you have more than one, you can tap a little back arrow once you finish recording and it'll show you all of your clips. You can tap the scissors icon to trim a video clip. If it's too long or if you had some sort of outtake or something, you can trim that off. You can also press and hold them to drag them around if you want to rearrange the clips or whatever you want to do. And I didn't mention too, but you can also upload video or photos that are already on your phone. You don't have to record right in the Instagram app, but if you're just recording something, then I kind of recommend starting out this way just till you get a feel of the Reels interface, because it is definitely very different than anything else on Instagram, and it can take kind of a learning curve. So from there, you can add text to your videos, which is always recommended. It's kind of the best practice to add almost like closed captions or something describing what you're doing in your video, just because a lot of people browse Reels without their sound on, and it's also more accessible, of course, as well. So you can add your text, and then if you don't want the text to be visible for the entire video, or if you have like multiple captions or things that you only want like during certain parts, you tap the little button at the bottom and you can drag and drop it so it only lasts however long you want it to last on your video. And then you can add more or whatever you want to do. And then finally, the last step is to add your caption and publish it. So you can type out the caption and add any relevant hashtags. It's recommended that you add your hashtags directly to the caption, because I know a lot of people like to add them in a comment on the regular posts. There hasn't been a ton of research done yet, but typically it seems like you get better interaction if you just add them directly into the caption on your reel. You can adjust the cover photo as well. So you can either drag it to a different section of the video so that that's what shows up on the home feed when people are scrolling, or you can also upload a photo from your phone as well if you want it to be more like well designed. And then you can either publish the reel to your feed, or you can save it for a draft if you're not ready to publish it right now. So some tips and tricks for creating a successful reel is to be entertaining and hook people right from the get-go. People have insanely short attention spans nowadays, especially when it comes to this short form type of content. So if you don't provide an interesting hook or an intro in the first couple of seconds, people will likely scroll right past. have fun with it too. Don't take it too seriously. A lot of reels is like people pointing and dancing or lip syncing to songs or like clips from TV or movies. You don't have to do that if it doesn't feel on brand to you, but also don't knock it till you try it. I was really resistant at first, but it can be fun. But you can also just record a video or, share videos or photos as well with some pretty music over the top of it. You don't have to do all of that goofy stuff. Also, if your reel doesn't get a lot of traction right away, don't delete it. Sometimes reels will blow up like days or weeks after they're posted. They have the longest lifespan currently of any type of content on Instagram, because right now, like your regular feed posts pretty much have like a 24-hour lifespan. After that, it's less likely that more people are going to find it organically. But reels really just stick around and people can find them and they can go viral like days after you post them. So definitely don't delete them. You also want to kind of hop on those trends in a timely manner to maximize the possibility of going viral. So if you notice, I recommend, spending some time watching a lot of reels to see what other people are doing, to see things that are trending. So if you notice something that lots of people are doing, kind of think of a unique way that you can adapt to that trend for your audience and your industry and try it out, because that's a really, really good way to go viral more quickly, I guess. And again, like I was saying, you want to type out kind of captions or explain what you're doing in the text, because a lot of people don't listen with their sound on because they're, scrolling at work or something like that. They don't want to like listen to it. Or again, it's more accessible to those as well too. So what on earth should you post on Reels? It's totally different than any other content. But I would say above all, just really aim to entertain or inform with every reel. And you can kind of think of these as like super short glimpses into your life or business, or a way to share a really quick tip, something, super bite-sized that people can absorb in 15 or 30 seconds. And at first glance, that seems like a really short time, but it's honestly pretty surprising how much information you can pack into 30 seconds. So just kind of experimenting with it and seeing what you can share in that time span, I guess, is a good way to get familiar with the Reels platform. And I say that each reel should fall into like one of three general categories. So either education, inspiration, or entertainment. So you're either sharing a tip, you're sharing some sort of inspiration, which for designers like yourselves is really helpful because people love interior design content on Instagram and on Reels. So just sharing some inspiring like before and afters or something like that of a recent project can go really well. Or again, entertaining. So just something funny and relatable, whether it's about design or, being a mom or something more personal as well. It's a good way to show your personality and your sense of humor, because again, people really like to see that and to get to know the people behind the brands as well. So I wanted to share some more Reels ideas to get you started, because it can be really overwhelming. But I would suggest sharing like a day in the life, 5 favorite items in your house, decor or sentimental or whatever, 5 interior trends for spring or summer or whatever season you want to use. Quick and easy decor tips always go over really, really well on Instagram and Reels. A time lapse of styling like bookshelves or coffee tables, or sprucing up a room or redecorating, something like that. Time lapses are really big on Reels as well. Again, the before and afters of a finished project, people love to see that transformation. An overview of your design or your client process, so that somebody who might be interested in working with you can get a better idea of what it's like to work with you. Brief introductions of your team if you have one, or even your family or your pets or anything like that, something that gets people a glimpse into your life, whether that's personal or professional life. And sharing some favorite color palettes for the upcoming season or the upcoming year. People always go crazy for color palettes and interior design and stuff like that. So that's a really good one. So I'd recommend starting with one of these, something that seems approachable, and just experimenting and seeing what happens with your content and with your reels. So I also want to backtrack and talk about stories really quickly too. To create a story on the homepage, you can swipe left and that opens the story menu, and it looks very, very similar to the Reels menu as well. You can either take a photo or video right from there, or you can swipe up to add a photo from your camera roll. And that's when the camera is open. Once you have a photo or a video added or taken, you can swipe up to add text or stickers, or, they have all sorts of interactive elements now, like polls or ask me a question stickers or things like that, which can really help boost that engagement and get people commenting or responding to your stories as well. So you can see all those stickers and fun things like that. And I want to talk about what to post on stories. So stories are a really great way to show a more casual side to your brand and business. It doesn't need to feel polished or planned the way that your feed posts or your reels probably are. So sharing behind the scenes peeks into your design work or your process, again, a day in your life, or just parts of your daily life, your home, your pets, your fashion, whatever makes sense to you. So even though I'm a graphic designer, I really enjoy fashion and clothing as well. I think it kind of goes hand in hand. So I, often will share an outfit that I'm wearing or something like that. Basically, again, just sharing your personality and letting people get to know the person behind the brand. A lot of people will talk directly to their camera or to their followers and just say this is what I'm doing today. This is my to-do list, blah, blah, blah. So it can just be a really much more personal and I guess intimate way of connecting with your followers. And if you don't like something, you can either delete it or it disappears in 24 hours too. So it doesn't have to be super planned out either. So to recap this section, aim to utilize reels and stories to really supplement that content plan, with the focus being on reels right now. Reels should be short and entertaining or educational, and stories can be more casual and off the cuff, plus they disappear in 24 hours, so it's not going to stick around if you don't like what you posted. So for our final section, I just want to briefly cover some do's and don'ts for growing on Instagram and utilizing Instagram effectively. So first, I want to say to not get caught up in vanity metrics. So in the social media industry, the number of followers you have, the number of likes you get, they're called vanity metrics because in reality, they don't really tell you much about the quality or the success of a business or an Instagram account. So, would it be nice to have 100,000 followers? Yeah, absolutely. And there's no denying that having, that high of a number can boost your credibility and increase the chances of people seeing your work. The problem comes when people get more worried about that little number that's next to their name than by what it signifies and start doing things like purchasing fake followers or using things called bots to try to cheat the system. You want followers that are going to care about what you post and most importantly are hopefully going to hire you and pay you actual money. That's the only real metric that matters at the end of the day. So as an example, last year, posts that I shared about my design work consistently got the lowest amount of likes and engagement. And that kind of bruised my ego a little bit. But I noticed if I stopped posting about my design work, my inquiries all but disappeared. So the right people were paying attention to those posts and reaching out to hire me, even if they weren't necessarily liking or commenting on every single one of them. And at the end of the day, that's what matters because that's what pays our bills. So instead, focus on creating genuine connections with people. That's really the best way to make a name for yourself on Instagram, to build a community and just attract more of those ideal clients and followers, is to just be genuine, be authentic, connect with people, respond to comments, respond to messages. If, people ask you questions, answer them, be friendly, be engaging, things like that. So another thing is don't post something just to post it. It's important to post consistently on Instagram like we were talking about, but you shouldn't just, post filler content just because you feel like you have to get something out that day. It's better to skip a day if you don't have anything really worthwhile, I guess, to share. And again, having that content calendar in place can really help prevent this kind of situation anyways, but just in case you ever find yourself without a post scheduled and you can't think of anything to save your life, then don't sweat it. Just wait until you can get back to your content calendar. It's better that way. Instead, focus on sharing intentional and meaningful content and just being really, I guess, planning out what you want to share, making sure your content is adding that value or that inspiration to your audience. sharing details about the design choices and the captions, or just letting your audience get to know you more personally. Sticking to those content pillars will really help with this as well, but it's just good to keep in mind. So this next one kind of goes along with the not getting caught up in vanity metrics, but I wanted to specifically mention that you should never, ever buy followers or likes. It will probably end up having the opposite effect that you intend. And it could even get your account shut down because it's actually against Instagram's terms of service. So if they find out that you're doing it, they can either suspend or permanently delete your account, and then all of your hard work is gone. So instead, focus on your existing audience. Even if you feel like your audience on Instagram is small, you never know who's listening. Your next client is likely already following you, even if you only have a couple hundred followers. And as we've discussed, paying clients are more important than, nice looking follower accounts that aren't really getting you anywhere. And finally, I want to say, don't only post polished design photos. You as interior designers are really lucky that your beautiful work kind of lends itself to being photographed so well, but you don't want to just post those polished professional photos because it can kind of start to feel repetitive or predictable to your audience, which might make them scroll past your content, which you of course don't want. So instead, work to really share your personality and your process as well. Like I've been saying, in 2021, people really want to get to know the person or the team behind the feed or the brand, not just their polished, final projects. So sharing behind the scenes sneak peeks or profiling your employees or your favorite vendors, or just sharing more about your own personality and your lifestyle, your kids or your pets or whatever it is you might want to share, can really help round out your content calendar and help people get to know you better. So I'm happy to answer any questions, and also you can visit this link to download the slides and revisit those as well. I'm going to go ahead and stop sharing my screen so we can hop on and start doing questions.
Thank you so much, Lizzie. That was super informative. So we have a lot of questions to get to. I won't delay here, but lots of questions about Reels. But before we dive into that, obviously things are ever changing and evolving on social media, and particularly just the Instagram platform. And so what's the best way to kind of stay up to abreast of, what's changing and how quickly the algorithms change and turn over and the new features? Any tips for that?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the scheduling platforms that I mentioned, Later, they have a wonderful blog. It's just later.com. And they post every single day about, new Instagram algorithm updates, how to do things effectively, how to stay up to date. So I would highly recommend following them on Instagram. I'm pretty sure they're just like at Later Media, I think is their handle, but you can find it on their website as well. That's a really good resource. And also following the official Instagram account on Instagram can be helpful too, because they post news and info as well.
Wonderful. So Reels, it looked like, based on the questions here, Reels is new to a lot of the attendees here. So someone had commented that Reels seems very playful and maybe a little less professional than some of the other posts, and on brand as some of the kind of in-feed content. So is that okay? And is that what that platform's kind of used for in the Instagram umbrella? Or do you have other accounts that you recommend that have done it really well that you could share with the group to check out?
Yeah, I definitely agree that it trends more towards the playful, fun side, but I have seen a lot of accounts and a lot of people that kind of do both, or that, you can make almost like a slideshow as well. You can upload photos. So even just creating something like a slideshow with before and after pictures of a recent project and, just adding some nice instrumental music over it is nice and on brand and polished, but will still get you those views and engagement. I can't think of any accounts off the top of my head, but I would really encourage you to just start scrolling through Reels and seeing what it suggests to you, because I think that you will be surprised to find the wide range of content. Because at first I was just seeing a lot of goofy stuff, and I'm like, I don't want to do that. But I've started to see more and more kind of professional and polished content as well. But I think there's a time and place for both.
Great. So what about the music you suggested through Instagram? Is there any, do you need to get permission or copyright sign-offs or anything, or is it all kind of fair game if it's in the Instagram app?
Yes, it's all fair game if it's in the app. There seems to be some discrepancies between accounts, like who has access to what. So I will say, I think if you have a business account, you only get a selection of like fair use music, which is, so you might not be able to find like, you know, popular like music that you're hearing right now. But it's best practice to just go ahead and use the music that's built in. So you can always just kind of preview things and find, you know, some nice things, even if it's not like Taylor Swift or something. So,
Sure.
But yeah, anything that's in the app is fair game.
And is there a frequency or cadence that you should be looking to post reels, or how do you divide it between in content posts, stories, or reels? Is that very personal, or is there a suggested cadence between all three?
Yeah, so Instagram themselves, it was like released recently that they suggest trying to post like 2 to 3 reels a week and 2 to 3 like feed posts a week, at least, which is kind of a lot, but it can kind of double up too, because you can save your reels like in your feed as well. So I personally think that's a lot, and it surprisingly takes a long time to create reels. I always end up spending way more time than I think I'm going to. So I focus more on my like in feed content and try to do at least 1 reel a week. That's what I would suggest when you're just getting started. But I would say that's what Instagram thinks you should do, 2 to 3, but it's really more important to focus on what you can, you know, realistically get out without compromising the quality and stuff like that too. So
great. So one question here is about goal setting, and is it better to increase your account in terms of followers, or really hone in and dive in with your current followers? And I know you touched on that a little bit, that it's quality over quantity, but when you're just kind of starting out, what's the best approach to take?
Yeah, I think you can do both simultaneously. That's kind of maybe a cop-out answer, but if you're just starting out and you don't have a ton, it is important to grow your account, because obviously the more followers you have, the more people are seeing your content. So I would focus on that, but don't ignore the current audience you have. You know, always be sure to respond to comments and messages in a timely manner, and just kind of be friendly and be willing to engage. You know, don't just post something and then disappear. Basically, if somebody comments on something, you know, respond to it, say thank you, you know, answer a question if they have it. But I think in that way, you know, by kind of focusing on building your content strategy, you're really doing both. You're nurturing the audience you already have, as well as looking to increase, you know, new followers as well.
Great. So what are the pros and cons of engaging a firm like yourself, or you know, social media firm handling social media versus doing it in-house?
Yeah, so I would say, you know, you might get a more personal touch if you choose to handle it yourself, because obviously, you know, you're the one that's posting. It's going to be more personal to you. So if you're kind of a more personal brand, or like a one-person firm, something like that, you might want to just stick with that for the time being. But if you have the budget to, you know, engage a professional firm, it's definitely something that can be really helpful, because, you know, if you've done your due diligence and they're a good firm, they're going to be on top of all of the new updates so that you don't have to be, essentially. You know, they're going to know all of the new best practices. They're going to be able to just really take it off your plate. So if you have the budget and if you find it really overwhelming, I would suggest thinking about outsourcing and just seeing how it goes. But if you are kind of just trying to start out and get yourself, I guess, going, then I would suggest starting it just so you have an understanding yourself of how it works, and then kind of moving on to outsourcing if you find that you kind of want to in the future.
Great. So you spoke a little bit about scheduling out content. You gave us a bunch of great recommendations. Thank you for that. Someone has a question about once you look through your analytics and determine kind of the best time to post, say it's saying 10 o'clock on Tuesdays is a prime time. Do you recommend posting at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, or do you recommend posting at say 9:30 so that it gets some time to build traction when a greater amount of your audience is typically online at 10?
I would suggest actually posting at 10 because with the algorithm, that first like half hour can be really like make or break. So the more engagement and comments and likes that you can get in that first hour, half hour, the more it's going to start showing it to other people, and it's kind of like a snowball effect. So I would aim to post exactly when it says that your followers are online so that there's a better chance of more people seeing it right away.
Great. Had a question here about budget and what should be allocated towards social media from an overall marketing budget perspective.
Well,
I know that's probably hard based on size of firm and goals, but
yeah, I definitely it definitely varies from business to business. I would say, and I'm probably biased, but I would say I would focus more on social media efforts in this day and age, rather than maybe some more like, print or something. I don't want to tell people not to do things if it works for them, but really social media, I really think is kind of like how things are moving towards in the future and even in the current day. So, I would suggest, I'm not sure if they're referring to like advertisement or if they're referring to like hiring somebody to take care of it. But if you're talking about like advertisement, I would suggest just like boosting a couple of posts, with $50 or $100, something or whatever feels comfortable to you, and just seeing how it goes. It's kind of like you have to experiment with it a little bit. And if you feel like you're getting a good return, then maybe try to start ramping that up. Ads definitely is something that is a good thing to engage a professional firm or agency for, because there's just so much stuff that goes into it, that I would highly suggest that as well. But yeah, I think, again, it depends on your audience. If your audience isn't really on social media, if you're geared towards, the older people, maybe might be more on Facebook, you might have to kind of dig into that and see. But again, like I was saying, pretty much everybody is on Instagram now, so that is kind of like outdated. But yeah, I would say just kind of really think about your own goals, your own audience, and kind of go from there. But it's a little hard to tell, without unique info.
Fair answer.
Yeah.
And I think we have time for one more question. And a few people answered this kind of in a different way, but it seems like a lot of people are jumping on the social media bandwagon, which is great. But they've neglected kind of what they've had in the past. So their websites are now a little bit outdated, or they haven't invested those dollars there. And they've pushed that towards social media. So does that have an effect on your social media? And is it worth kind of revisiting and staying on top of your website as well, as opposed to relying just on social media for that as your brand kind of platform?
Yeah, I always suggest having an up-to-date, home base of your website, kind of, because the goal is to get people off of Instagram and to your website, or however they go about engaging your services. And I think for most businesses like this, that's at least starts with the website as a touch point. It's also worth pointing out too that, we don't own Instagram. If for some reason, heaven forbid, they shut down tomorrow, all of that would be gone. So it's a good idea to try to, it's important to focus on Instagram, but trying to move people off of that and onto, pushing them to your website, or maybe a newsletter, emailing list, something like that. That's always a good option. So I always recommend having an up-to-date website and with info easily accessible so that they can hire you, things like that. So
wonderful. Well, that's all the time we have for today, but Lizzie, thank you so much for joining us. It was wonderfully informative, and lots of great questions from the audience. Thank you everyone for joining us. This presentation was recorded and will be on the Design Center at the Mart YouTube page within a few days. So thank you again, Lizzie, and thank you all for joining us. Have a great day.
Thanks.